Today, I'm going to be sharing a secret that top producing life insurance agents use. And you're going to be able to use this to immediately increase your sales percentage, your closing percentage. Like the whole process is just going to get better and easier. So you'll actually be able to go from being an average insurance agent to being a top producer. But first, we're going to talk about how to build rapport and value throughout your sales presentation. And guys, stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to show you how to get the guarantees of whole life and I am your policy. You're absolutely going to want to use both of those if you're selling life insurance, whether face-to-face or remotely. And please give the video a thumbs up, and we do suggest subscribing. Guys, we're all about insurance sales content just like this. When it comes to building rapport and value for telesales especially, and this stuff should be applied for face-to-face too, but there's three important things. So number one, you've got to get the prospect to talk about the beneficiary and really like admit why you guys are speaking, why you're having that conversation, and why they're interested in, finding out this information or getting this quote for the insurance. You've got to figure out a way to make that happen through basically sharing stories with them and getting them to open up to you. So like one of the things that a lot of agents will say is something like, well, so Janet, I know you filled out the form about the burial insurance. Did something recently happen that made you think about this, got you started in thinking about this? To me, that's a good leading question. I've done something similar to that, and I see most agents nowadays do that. Number two, you got to talk about funeral and, I hate to say it, death. You've got to get them to share like their most recent funeral and or experience where somebody died. Guys, this is important because this is really the foundation and basis of life insurance. If there's no need, if you can't bring out the need and, get them to think why they filled out the form internally, why subconsciously they did it, whether they are serious or not, whether they're a tire kicker or not, it's so important. You have to get them to do that. So like one of the things that I'll do is I'll share an experience with them. I've got my canned stories, my canned funeral experience, my canned death experiences. I've got my canned ways of building value and rapport. So to me, it's just kind of like that thing that you share that you get that helps you to get them to open up and share with you. And that's really the idea. Look, one of the things that I will say is the best life insurance agents are also the best storytellers. So that is like huge, huge, huge. If you can tell a good story, you're going to be able to get them to open up because they're going to want to share their story, their experiences with you. The third thing or third part is something that we do. I feel like a lot of agents don't really do this because they've replaced it with something else. I think most agents try to bring so much value and rapport up front that they don't really have to deal with objections, but the truth is they're still getting the objections. Now, a top tier closer is going to have less objections just because they come off so smooth and professional and they've done it so often that it feels more natural to them, and the client seems to like feel this. In other words, more of the clients can actually sense this. But to me, I like to use a method that you'll find in a really good book that I love, The Way of the Wolf. It's the looping technique. So I know the client is going to give me the objection. So now I'm going to take basically 3 steps and then go back. And so they're going to give me the objection. Well, Doug, honestly, I'm going to need time to think about this before I make a commitment. Hey, Janet, I get that, and I totally understand. And that's when you go back to the product presentation. You talk about the product. What I like to do is keep notes on the carrier, on each carrier. So if we're talking American Amicable, I'm going to pull out my little note, my little cheat sheet, and we're going to hit on all these points about American Amicable. I'm just going to tell them the life story of American Amicable, who they are, what they're worth, like everything I can think of. I'll even get into like AM Best, or maybe I'll save AM Best for a second loop, and that's what we call this looping. So I'm going to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes bringing value to them. I'm going to remind them why we're talking, the need, the beneficiary by name, I'm going to do that. And then I'm also going to remind them with final expense, it's really important that a lot of people are concerned about having to make a payment today. They're concerned about the commitment's one thing, but making the payment today is another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to address, hey, I got great news. We're not going to have to collect a payment today. We'll do that after you receive your next Social Security check. And so by doing that, it really builds up to reclosing. Then what I'll do is I'll say, can I make a suggestion? They're always going to say yes. And then I reclose. Basically what I do is I do it to where I either have them pick the bottom option, or I basically walk them through the process and just go like totally do the reclose exactly the way I did it in the beginning, again, a second time, the whole thing. And I find that when you do that a couple of times, so they may go, whoa, Doug, yeah, I get it. You're making me feel pressured, and I don't appreciate that. I still need to talk to my daughter. Hey, I think that's important, Janet. Good. I love that you're going to talk to your daughter first. And then what I'll do is I'll do a second loop. Maybe that's when I'll get into maybe the writers, or I'll get into AM Best, their rating. You can literally talk about AM Best. If you pull up a cheat sheet on AM Best, which is what our agents usually do, they have that cheat sheet ready. You're going to have point after point after point after point on talking points on everything about them, just like you did with American Amicable. Then you simply have to go back and reclose. And that's the bottom line. You know, you're doing the same thing you did before. You're asking them, can I make a suggestion? And then boom, you're doing like a price drop close, or you're suggesting they start with that bottom option. Guys, another thing that's kind of huge, and you're probably never going to hear anyone else talk about this. If you can get the client to laugh, that is such points. Look, here's the thing. Maybe they won't laugh, but they'll at least smile, right? So to me, when I'm making a sales presentation, whether face-to-face or telesales, I've got all this energy and enthusiasm going on. Like, they're sensing it to the point to where they're like feeling it themselves. And the next thing you know, they're talking upbeat. Like the only way for me to describe it is the enthusiasm and the energy gets transported to them. And now they're kind of upbeat a little bit. They're stepping up. You know, if they're falling asleep, I'm waking them up. I'm getting them involved. That is huge. And let me tell you something. We talked about being a storyteller, how important that is. Telling a good joke, even if you say, hey, Janet, you know, do you like to laugh? All right, I got one for you. Just out of nowhere, telling them a joke, that can be huge too. Physical contact. Guys, this is important. I know it sounds silly to some of you, but this is what I did for years in every presentation that I made. Something I learned through NLP, which we're going to talk about that here. That's a game changer. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. When I would make my face-to-face presentation, one of the things I did when I would find an important part in the presentation, and I would simply reach out and just touch them on the leg in most cases, or on the arm. If we were at a table, I would touch them on the arm. By making this physical contact, it sends an underlying message that tells them that you're sure of yourself, and you're literally physically connecting with them. So if you're over the phone, we're trying to connect through our voice. We're trying to connect through tonality. We're trying to connect through the storytelling and the jokes, right? We're trying to connect through all this. The beautiful thing when you're face to face, boom, it's that simple. And I'm telling you, they sense it. It helps them to open up. It's something I used to do. It's probably why I always had a very high closing percentage. So let's talk about NLP. And basically where I got that whole idea of reaching out and touching them, that form of communication, how important that is from reading a book on neuro-linguistics programming. When I first got into sales, so really I've been in sales since I was in my 20s, so it took years, but I kind of realized that I was a little shy, and maybe sales really wasn't for me, is the way I felt. But I wanted to change it. I think that's the difference between most people. Most people try to get their clients to change for them, or basically they try to do what they're gonna do without changing. I was willing to change. So I got into a lot of things. I looked at hypnosis. I got into meditation. The most important thing that I ever did was neuro-linguistics programming. So I picked up a book called Introducing NLP by Joseph O'Connor and John Seymour. And this book changed everything for me. And what it did was it taught me to look at myself from the perspective of others. I think that I was more shy and a little bit, the only way to describe it is, I was afraid to hurt people's feelings. I was more concerned about myself than them, but I didn't want to make myself feel bad by doing that. Look, I can go round and round with this. The bottom line was it taught me to look at myself differently and realize that the way people looked at me wasn't the way I thought they looked at me. Different tasks. There were different tasks, that's the word I'm looking for, that I did that helped me see myself differently. It also helped me realize that the clients see each other. People see each other differently. And by doing this, it helped me view them differently, and my perception totally changed. It made it easy for me to open up and actually become a top tier closer. It really had a lot to do with that. So I would definitely say pick up that book, Introducing NLP. Joseph O'Connor and John Seymour wrote it. Excellent, excellent, excellent read. But you've got to apply the principles. You've got to do the activities and the tasks, and by doing them, it's going to help you change everything. That's it, guys. Hopefully you got something out of today's video. If you'd like a copy of the guarantees of whole life insurance and the I Am Your Policy that I mentioned way back at the beginning of the video, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. If you'd like more information on working with me through our agency, where the commissions are pretty darn high, and we have really intensive training for both face-to-face and telesales for life insurance agents, or if you want to sell Medicare Advantage on a face-to-face basis, that's really the main way we do it. Just shoot me an email at that same address. As always, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. So do your thing. Get out there or put that headset on. Whatever happens, make sure that you do something good for someone else today. Happy hunting.